Hello Muslim friends in the world. Sister Mary Elizabeth was a nun known for her devoutness and passion for spreading Christian teachings in a small church on the outskirts of Chicago. She had dedicated her life to serving God and the surrounding community. In addition to leading prayers, she often organized religious discussion sessions where she engaged in dialogue with people from various backgrounds to strengthen her faith. Mary had a very critical view of Islam. To her, the religion posed a threat to the values she believed to be the ultimate truth. Her perspective was further reinforced by the negative news about Islam she often encountered in the media. One day, she was challenged by a Muslim student named Ahmed during an open discussion session at a local university. Ahmed, a polite and educated young man, invited Mary to discuss the similarities and differences between Islam and Christianity. Mary eagerly accepted the challenge, confident that she could prove the truth of her religion. The day of the debate arrived, and the auditorium was packed with students from diverse backgrounds. Mary opened her argument confidently, discussing the Trinity, God's love, and how Christianity is the path to salvation. Ahmed, on the other hand, calmly explained Islam's perspective on Tawhid, monotheism, Prophet Isa, Jesus, and the harmonious relationship between Islam and previous religions. The debate was heated yet respectful. Ahmed answered all of Mary's questions with clear and logical reasoning, citing evidence from both the Koran and the Bible. Mary, initially confident in her arguments, began to feel shaken when some of her points could not be defended. When Ahmed asked, "If God is truly one, why must there be three persons in one God?" Mary fell silent, unsure how to respond. After the debate, Mary felt angry and humiliated. She viewed her loss as an affront to her faith. Her animosity toward Islam and Ahmed grew stronger. In her prayers, she asked God to show her a way to combat what she saw as a threat. The defeat in the debate with Ahmed months earlier had wounded Mary's pride. She became increasingly convinced that Islam was a grave threat to her faith and community. Her anger reached a peak one Sunday morning. Mary came up with what she believed to be a way to demonstrate the superiority of her beliefs. She planned to burn a copy of the Koran in front of her congregation as a symbol of rejecting Islam. Filled with emotion, she announced her plan to the congregation gathered in the church. "Today, we will rid ourselves of this falsehood," she said, holding up a copy of the Koran. Standing at the altar, Mary prepared a small pile of wood and a match. The congregation watched with mixed reactions, some in agreement, others doubtful, and a few visibly uncomfortable. Determined, Mary struck a match. But before the flame could touch the Koran, something unexpected happened. The large candles adorning the altar suddenly toppled over, igniting the surrounding curtains. The fire spread rapidly, consuming the fabric and wood inside the church. The congregation panicked, scrambling to escape. Amid the chaos, Mary, standing near the altar, became trapped. Thick smoke filled the room, and Mary began coughing. She looked around for an escape, but the fire had encircled her. In her fear, she clutched the Koran tightly to her chest, crying out, "God, why is this happening? I only wanted to defend your faith." Suddenly, she felt something unusual. Despite the raging flames around her, the heat seemed not to touch her body. Mary looked at the Koran in her arms. The book remained intact, completely unscathed. She, too, felt cool, as if protected by an unseen force. Mary sat still, holding the Koran tightly, praying silently. In that moment of stillness, she felt something flow through her, a sense of peace she had never experienced before. She began to recall Ahmed's words during their debate. The Quran is the word of God, meant to guide, not to be destroyed, but to be understood. Not long after, firefighters managed to enter the church and found Mary unharmed, sitting amidst the charred remains while clutching the Quran. The rescuers were stunned to see her in such a state, surrounded by scorched ruins yet entirely untouched by the flames. After that event, Mary's life took a profound turn. She began studying the Quran with an open heart, not to find flaws but to seek the truth. The hatred that once consumed her was replaced by curiosity and respect. Mary realized that the fire she had intended to use for destruction had become God's tool to save her and open her eyes. Following the fire that destroyed the church yet left her unscathed, Sister Mary Elizabeth spent that night in silence. She couldn't sleep, her mind replaying the extraordinary event she had experienced. Why hadn't the Quran she held burned? Why had she survived the flames while everything around her was reduced to ashes? She felt that something greater than herself was at play, something God was trying to convey. The next morning, Mary sat in her room, holding the still intact Quran. She decided to read the book she had once viewed with such disdain. With a heavy yet curious heart, she opened the first page and began to read. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Praise be to Allah, Lord of all the worlds. Al-Fatiha 1-2. Those words touched her heart. She felt a sincerity in the prayer, simple yet profound. Mary continued reading, page by page. She was captivated by the stories of the prophets, the fair laws, and the teachings of compassion contained within. The more she read, the more she found answers to the questions that had haunted her for so long. Mary recalled Ahmed, the young Muslim man who had once defeated her in debate. She felt compelled to meet him to ask more questions. With newfound courage, she reached out to Ahmed and requested a meeting. Ahmed humbly welcomed her request. During their meeting, Mary asked numerous questions. Ahmed patiently answered each one, citing verses from the Quran and Hadith to explain the concept of Tawhid, the life of Prophet Muhammad, and Islam's connection to previous religions. Mary felt that each answer brought her heart greater tranquility. In the weeks that followed, Mary continued to learn about Islam. She read the Quran, studied Hadith, and even attended Islamic lectures in secret. Each step she took strengthened her conviction that Islam was the truth. She was moved by the simplicity of Islam's teachings, the belief in one God, meaningful acts of worship, and its message of love and mercy toward others. Finally, on a bright morning, Mary made a monumental decision. She contacted Ahmed and asked him to accompany her to the local mosque. There, in the presence of the Imam and several witnesses, Mary recited the shahadah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Tears streamed down her face as she proclaimed her belief in Allah and acknowledged Prophet Muhammad as his messenger. A sense of peace she had never known before filled her heart. Mary, who now chose the name Maryam Elizabeth, began her new life as a Muslimah. She left behind her title of sister and her life in the church, but she never abandoned her love and compassion for others. Instead, she used her experiences to become a bridge between the Christian and Muslim communities, teaching that differences in faith are not a reason for hatred but an opportunity for learning and understanding.